Welcome to another CEO Wisdom Pod. We have Josh Simons with us. He's CEO at various companies, basically a music exec, a tech music exec, should I say. Venel Group, he's the CEO at that. Jaxter, Vamper and Venel.com, which he acquired for $500,000. Not too bad. We're going to talk about the music industry today, the SaaS industry, all the innovative product Josh has built with his team. This pod is presented to you by podpire.com. If you want to start your own pod, scale it, or sponsor your podcast, monetize it, go to podpire.com. Josh, welcome to the pod. Tell me a bit more about yourself and what you're up to nowadays.
Yeah, thank you for having me today, Charles. As you mentioned, CEO of Venel Group. We're kind of a portfolio music tech company that is growing fairly rapidly. We exist on the Australian Stock Exchange, so we're publicly listed. I actually started by creating Vamper, which is the social network in our portfolio. So we built that starting in America in 2015, and we scaled that up to about 1.2 million users at the time that we sold the business. We sold it to a music metadata company called Jaxter, which is like IMDb for music. And they didn't have the social layer. We didn't have the official credits data that they had. And so the sort of the thinking behind that merger was, 1+1 = 3. And then shortly after that, we went on a bit of a buying spree and a innovation spree, and we created vinyl.com, and we bought a company called the Bragg Media, which owns the licenses to Rolling Stone Australia, Variety Australia, other trade publications like Tone Deaf and the Music Network. So we started branching off into media a little bit, but across the portfolio is one common theme, which is we sort of exist to create tools or service tools that help all participants of the music creator economy. So that means people in their bedroom making music, but it also means rights holders. It also means fans and consumers, people who want to stay up to date with music news. Anyone in that ecosystem, our products sort of exist to keep that flywheel turning and helping folks make money along the way.
It's quite impressive what you've built. So, were you always ambitious? Like, who was Josh as a younger guy?
Yeah, I was, because my parents and even grandparents played a pretty important role in the music industry. My granddad started was an early partner, sorry, in a publishing company in the UK called Leeds Music, which is now Universal Music Publishing Group. Um, and he stayed on as the chairman until the day he died. He was Tom Jones' personal manager. He signed hundreds of acts that you would have heard of, and he was just a very important early day music industry executive. My dad followed that up by going a bit more an independent route, but still working with people like Paul McCartney and Jeff Wayne and some just people who have sold tens or hundreds of millions of albums. And so I think I probably felt a little bit of pressure to continue in the family business. The problem that I had was by the time I was 10, all of my relatives had passed away effectively. So I was starting from scratch. And I think sometimes people who know my story would think I had an unfair advantage, but I did this from nothing.
Just the legacy, just the fire in you.
Yes.
All right. Well, wow. Okay. So, what was your what was the first moment in which you were like, okay, I made it and I converted this idea into an empire? How old were you and what company was that?
I don't know that I ever felt like I made it. That's not in my personality. Um, there's been moments of immense pride. I can rail off a few, but I can think hitting 1 million users was a big one. That was pretty good validation. Even earlier milestones, I remember, because being a startup founder is hard work, and there's days where you doubt yourself and you question mission. But even small banal moments like taking out the trash in Los Angeles and feeling a bit down, and then reminding myself, no, there's 100,000 active people on your platform right now that they're your army. Like they have your back. Um, if you needed them and act, and we did. Like we had some trouble raising cash when everyone was having trouble raising cash, and we did a crowdfunding round, and thousands of our users ended up investing in the company, and it really saved us. So moments like that make you feel like you've made it a bit. But yeah, I don't feel like I'm super successful. It's just there's a mission, and we wake up every day and we chip away at it.
Just the guy that shared music credits with Travis Scott and Kanye West, that I know at least. But how's the music industry nowadays? It's would it be a good idea for me to start as a DJ, knowing like self promotion and being pretty obsessive type of personality? Do you think I could still make it somewhat easily out there?
I don't think it's easy for anyone, although I would say DJs have an unfair advantage to a lot of other genres because their stage show is just their desk and themselves. And whereas I was in a band, and even a small tour where we were playing to rooms of 300 or 400 people, to get my entire band and my crew and our equipment around a big country like Australia would cost us twice as much as we'd make. So being in a band is very hard. But yeah, I mean, I know it was a sort of tongue-in-cheek question, but yeah, it might be a fun time to start DJing.
Yeah, it could be. Uh, your goals this year, what is your focus with all these companies?
Well, like as I mentioned before, we're a public company now. And we've kind of been operating in that framework for a while, even with Vamper, because we did crowdfunding and we hit certain thresholds that meant we had to do a certain amount of reporting per year. But we're now like a proper, on a listed company that you can trade, and um, that means that really my mission is always on maximizing shareholder value. So it's organic growth. It's looking for opportunities or targets that can help us double down on some of the areas that we're already working on, and basically how do we maximize the share price and get the best result for investors. And it's a slightly different way of working than when you're a startup CEO and you're just focused on maybe trying to find product market fit and increase adoption of whatever you're building. This is a bit more strategic and a bit more calculated.
Tell us about Vamper precisely. I found the model to be quite innovative. Slash Jaxter, the IMDb of music.
Which okay, so I mean they're currently sort of two products slowly becoming one. Um, the goal was always to try and find synergies as quick as possible on the product front, especially for creators. So Jaxter has an interesting model where it gets a lot of use from businesses and enterprise and companies that need access to volume of the data. But it also had a sort of what we called a creator tier, and that was, musicians who just wanted to make sure that their credit history was accurate online. Um, we're now trying to route those customers through the Vamper product because the Vamper product was really made for those people. It's about solving your problems as a music creator and offering all sorts of tools and services. So we've moved some of the credits data into Vamper so that the sort of, let's call it B2C segment of our customer base can do it all inside of the Vamper platform. So that's been we've been working on that for about 7 or 8 months, and it's mostly rolled out. But the Jaxter product still exists in its own right as a B2B tool.
You infused AI into this. I spoke with your head of biz dev some time ago. Tell us about that.
Yeah, look, we haven't spoken on the record about exactly what we're doing when it comes to AI and our databases, but I would say right now I would characterize it as R&D. There's lots of ideas, there's endless ideas, but you know, again, when we bring it back to shareholder value, what are the objectives? Like, we want to increase speed, we want to lower the cost, we want to make the entire, I guess, value chain just more efficient. So, can AI be used to achieve all of those objectives? The short answer is yes. How we do it is in the R&D phases.
You acquired Rolling Stone not so long ago. What was the thinking behind that one? Is it like the Bolt guy, I believe the electric, no, the battery guy, billionaire acquiring Forbes not so long ago? I was questioning that move. Like, is Forbes still a good move? In this case, was because like front cover, one of the last front cover of Forbes was Sam Bankman-Fried, and the value of Forbes itself. But I think there's so much values in these brands as well. So you've acquired Rolling Stone Australia. Tell us about that move.
There's a lot of synergies there that I think are sort of probably less obvious on the outside. But what I would say is, right now, when we look at growing our other music platforms, we're spending a lot of money on user acquisition, whether it's running ads or it's doing marketing activations, and ultimately we're always looking for press in the music media. It's normal. It's what you sort of do in your space. So to own the trade publications that we're lobbying for all the time seemed like a good idea, and a great way to save money as well, because we're not paying in theory for as many impressions on outside platforms. So it was part of a broader user acquisition strategy. Number one. Number two, we have an e-commerce platform in vinyl.com, and e-commerce platforms advertise on media, and media wishes they had an e-commerce platform to sell their own products. So there's something in the coming together of those two things that you'll start to see really soon. Then number three, it is profitable. So that ticked a big box for us in terms of increasing the profitability of the group. I think those are sort of probably the main reasons why it seemed like a very good purchase. And it's not very often that in a single transaction you can, or 8x your company revenue and get closer to profitability so overnight. So there's a ton of reasons to pursue that deal, and it was a complicated deal because we had to get the messaging right, and we had to work through the structure, and it took about 6 months. So probably not that long in the grand scheme of things, but it was a tricky one to get across the line.
Right. Tell me about your vision with the Venel Group. Like, where do you want to take the company, say, in 10 years from now?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, the vision for the group is to power and empower all participants in the music ecosystem, especially in that creator economy subset. Uh, right now, we're Australia's only ASX listed music business. Not sure if we'll remain the only one forever, but it would be really nice in 10 years' time to say we were Australia's first. That would mean mission accomplished. It would mean we've proven the market, we've proven the industry in the public markets. That's a real legacy to leave behind. And on top of that, I hope we've taken the share price to infinity and beyond, and we've made a few people some dollars.
Do you actively participate in the process of acquisitions? How do you decide if someone's a good fit to be acquired or not?
Yeah, great question. Yes, I'm very active. It's probably currently quite a large chunk of my day to day. Obviously, there's the identification of targets. We're quite fortunate because of our position as the only publicly listed music company in Australia. I get to see a lot of the world's deal flow. So opportunities typically come to me, or they come to someone in the company, and if whoever it gets to sees there might be some interest, it gets to me. I have a pretty quick process that I run through. It takes a matter of minutes to sort of, on a very high level, decide, is a conversation worthwhile? if it's an interesting company and an interesting mission or vision, I'll always take the meeting, because meeting other founders is the greatest gift of being a founder. It's the best part of the job. But if there's something there, absolutely we take a call. And then often, it's just a matter of getting high level financials. That gives you a pretty good idea of what's this going to look like inside of our consolidated group. Is it additive, or is it subtractive, but it adds value elsewhere? And there's a whole lot of questions we go through. But again, I'd suggest that process is becoming more and more refined. And then it grinds on from there. And then you've got to take it, if you're interested in it and excited about it, you've got to take the opportunity to a board, and the board has to approve it, and then you got to go back to the target and see if they're on board with how you value them. And it takes a while. It's not quick, but I really enjoy the process. And then of course the part that a lot of people don't talk about is, then after 3 to 6 months and you get the deal done, then you've got to integrate it. And that's just as tricky. That's about integrating culture, which can't really be forced or fast tracked. And you've got to find cost savings and, see where there's double up on certain things. And usually there is in the back office, for example. But it's a process. But I've learned a lot, because I did a couple of very small acquisitions when I was CEO of Vamper only. But they're nothing like the scale of what we're looking at these days.
Right. And it's quite interesting because it seems to me that, yeah, 2 years ago you were raising money via crowdfunding. You also observed the VC route at some point. You were laughed at because you were running your company as a real business, not like a typical Silicon Valley SaaS. And nowadays you went public. So what was the thinking and the evolution of the mindset there?
Um, you know, I just do what I think is right and what needs to happen. And I've never been one to follow the crowd. I think often my ideas are several years ahead of the next talking point. It's happened a few times. Um, and so when it was cool for VCs to only acquire companies that were grow, but had no pathway to profitability, I never thought that was particularly smart. And I started pivoting a couple of years before everyone else started pivoting. Now everyone's talking about, you've got to be profitable before you can raise money. And these trends, even though I've only done this for 10 years, I've been around long enough to see the trends change at a pretty rapid pace. And a lot of those money bros, especially the young ones, the kids, um, they just follow the trends like sheep. And as a leader and an entrepreneur, it's my job to be, fearless and back my own vision. And eventually people will follow and come on board. And it's what happened during our crowdfunding phase. It's what happened now as we're a public company. You build trust. I think trust is probably the most important word I haven't said yet. But you build trust with your shareholders, with your community, with potential shareholders who are just following you from a distance but aren't sure. You've got to build trust, and you build trust by showing up. You build trust with consistent innovation, and you also build trust by showing that you're not afraid to go against the grain and do things your own way. And that's what I've done.
Yeah, it seems that also you went through a lot running like all these companies. You often talk about mental health. I believe you lost like 27 pounds during COVID or some kilograms during COVID. So how do you keep your day to day? What habit do you install in your day to day to keep yourself happy and productive?
Yeah, no, I put like half of it back on. I'm like a yo-yo. Um, how do I keep myself happy and productive? I mean, I'm motivated by work. So in some ways, when things are the busiest is when I'm operating them most efficiently. I think what I'm not very good at, which people don't always talk about, is probably maximizing the downtime between big events. So let's say we close a deal and we know we've got a couple of months before the next round of, maybe it's an annual report or whatever the hell it is. But I'm not very good at taking that downtime, and that's when I get least productive, because I'm in my head. So I've got work to do on that. And usually my solution is exercise or walking, which is exercise. But I had an injury in Christmas, so it's been really hard this year. It's been probably the hardest start to a year, just because for the last 3 months I've been stuck inside. Um, so that's been an added layer on top of an already stressful job. It's been an added layer, but I'm coping. I mean, I'm here with you at 9 a.m. on a Thursday morning, so you just push on forward. As I said earlier, I really do believe that the key to success is just to keep turning up.
Yeah, or sometimes have folks like me that interviewed over 10,000 CEOs tell you that you're the winner and you're doing well. Or it seems to me from like watching your career as a whole, it's very impressive to say the least. Usually, yeah, I think we go through challenges if we have like some routines to keep us in bound. I think we can stay productive. Injury is hard. Recovery is an important topic nowadays in athletes, but also in CEOs more and more. Yeah, it's quite hard to cope with like losing an ability to train your body and stay productive and all. But thanks for today. It was super insightful to hear you, Josh. Where can people find out more about you?
Yeah, so probably my LinkedIn page is where I'm most active, in terms of if you want to reach out and drop me a line. So it'd be linkedin.com/in/Simons Josh, which is SIMONSJOSH.